All right, good afternoon, everyone. So another meeting with the governor that also included the minority from the House and the Senate. Not a lot of movement in this meeting. We reiterated there was a transportation meeting. We thanked the governor for that. We talked about continuing to schedule, which do seem to have some productivity to them. We have the individual bill discussions with the commissioners and the chairs of those different bills, and so the governor, agreed to get those scheduled. There's some productivity there, and let's see what. Then we can just continue to reiterate, and I think this is the point that we are continuing to make. And one of our members quoted a DFLer from the Senate that pointed out that our budget as proposed would be the largest general fund budget ever in the state's history. It would be, even including the federal stimulus dollars, about the same as what was spent in the last biennium. And if Minnesota families and Minnesota businesses who've been living on the same or oftentimes less, when they look at their budgets and they have increased costs when it comes to gas prices, they have increased food costs, and yet they have to prioritize, they have to reform their spending in certain ways, and to ask them to fund further growth in state government at this time is just not acceptable to our caucuses. And we continue to push that point with the governor. We also like to point out that our budget includes a 6% increase, almost $600 million increase to Health and Human Services. It also has several $100 million increase to K-12. And I had sent out a press release earlier talking with the governor. I think the K-12 budget is very close where the numbers are concerned. We've had some really good discussions on the policy, and I think that is a budget that's 40% of the budget. K-12 is a priority for Minnesotans, and I believe that that's one that we could come to fairly quickly to a quick resolution on.
I mean, the one thing that strikes us over and over again is the governor says he's compromised. He's compromised with his own tax plan. Our members have compromised on a lot of areas, again, in prioritizing. This is where Minnesota families, Minnesota business owners have been for quite some time, for 2 or 3 years. And to ask government to do the same thing to my fellow Minnesotans who call and ask, how much more are we spending? Why should we spend more? This isn't about having a government of bare bones. This is about a tax increase for more spending. Where most Minnesotans are is whatever we've got in the checkbook, that's what we spend, because we don't know what tomorrow will look like. If this economic recovery slows down at all, if it stalls out, then where do you go with the tax increase? If you do this once and it's not enough then where do you go? Then is it the sales tax? Is it going to be a tax, a surcharge? What's next? Rather than take that risk with our economic future, we think we should live within our means. And as Senator Koch said, if you were able to get by the last 2 years on the budget that your state government spent, if you can do it for 2 more years in tough economic times, we think that's the least that the government should be able to live on. We don't need to raise taxes for more government spending. We've got a very solid budget. We've made some changes in there that we think once those changes come out, there actually will be even more revenue for the state of Minnesota. But in some of these cases, you've got to get to that point where you believe that the things you do in government to change the way the money is spent will actually save you money on the back end. We believe there will be those cost savings. Unfortunately, we're maybe not quite there with the governor yet, but he is, in some cases in the state government finance, is coming our way. So is that?
Logistically, you can't get done by Monday, even if you agree right this minute. You couldn't get done by Monday. Anybody willing to acknowledge that yet?
Tom, never say never. I don't think there is. With the conference committee reports, the governor has all the bills now. Every single one, I believe, have been. We send them over and they've got to receive them. There's a process to go. I think he has them all. If there are some things in there that, again, if it's a veto and then we need to go back and put a bill back together, that's great. If we can know by today, that would be helpful. We really do not like to meet on Sundays, but if we have to in order to get a budget done by Monday, absolutely.
In the meantime, will you take up gay marriage after 6 o'clock?
Yes, we will.
You will?
Yes, we will.
How long do you expect that debate to go on?
That's not up to us.
Do you have votes?
That's for the members on the floor to decide.
Do you think you do?
Well, I think there will be at least the same amount there was for some of the procedural motions.
So 2 other new things. So, 1, 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 2 We have a Governor Quee inspired us to have to try to characterize these discussions and not quote or paraphrase others in the room, but we will just talk about what we said. And so we asked the governor and Senator Bach and Representative Thiessen to put together specifics and even legislation that would reflect, I guess, what we'd say the governor's newest tax proposal is, and the newest spending cuts that he'd agreed to. So I'm just going to say we asked for that, and you can ask them what their response is or what they plan to do. We stand ready. The governor has all the bills on his desk now, so he can act or he can negotiate. There's probably multiple options within there. He has the phone numbers of the Speaker and the Majority Leader, and we plan to be here all night, all weekend, through Monday. I do think there's time. Tom, I remain optimistic. No back down on optimism. And again, he's going to have to act or negotiate. A number of these bills are really close. We'll point out again on K-12, there's 500 school districts waiting to budget. There's 500 school boards that are waiting for the numbers that come out of St. Paul. And if our numbers are 99% of what the governor's financial numbers wanted to be on K-12, then I think it's time to give Minnesota schools a budget. And we can do that. We can do that. That first things first. That should be the first bill we kick out of here, with all apologies to the agriculture budget bill, which we got done earlier. So we're ready to meet more tonight, tomorrow. There's nothing planned as of now. And again, you can ask the others in the room what their plans are.
Mr. Speaker and Madam Leader, you would acknowledge that at least to this point in the negotiations, at least at this point, that you have not made any progress with the governor on the tax issue?
Oh, not on the tax issue, absolutely.
And Mr. Speaker, same view, I see.
Right. I mean, there are still there's been an influx of 10 or 15 votes in the House chamber to vote for that tax increase. Have not.
Is $34 billion in revenue still the number that you guys are looking for?
Well, again, I think that's what's in the forecasted number. If you don't like the checkbook, which we've heard that's grown a little old, but that's that's the money that's available to the state from our portion, the general fund amount that we can spend. So 34, I think it's 34.2 is what the exact number is. Some of our targets came in a little bit lower. Without us in the room, our House and Senate conferees, usually this place goes House, Senate, Conference. In this case, it went House, Senate, Conference. So in some cases, they found great ideas, and it wasn't our goal for them to do that. They just actually, when they got together, found that idea was better than ours. This idea is better. Put them together, and we made a little bit better bill. So I think it actually is under the 34.2 number. But again, our goal is especially to finish with a balanced budget on time.
Realistically speaking, if you take up Amers tonight, is there any way that you guys would have more talk with the governor tonight, or is that something more likely to happen tomorrow?
We're available all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Unless there's a call to the House, I can run back up there. Probably could use a little bit of a jog anyway. Yeah.
There's some bills now being introduced, lights on. Is that appropriate at this particular point? At least our planned, I should say.
You heard the unflagging optimism, and those are not leadership. That's not leadership's position. We'd like to get this budget done.
At some point, is the legislature going to need to do that? Maybe Monday, possibly?
You know, I
Wouldn't even think about it until Monday.
Yeah,
Wouldn't even think about it.
we're still optimistic about getting done on time. I haven't. If you don't see Amy or Jeff or I or Matt introduce the lights on bill, we're interested in finishing the budget on time.
Are you worried that if we don't finish with the budget by Monday and then might even pass Amers as a ballot, that's going to be the signature accomplishment of this regular legislative session?
Well, we've already passed a balanced budget. We've sent a balanced budget to the governor that spends what funds are available. His budget wants to spend more. We've passed a balanced budget. He has passed a balanced spreadsheet. We've passed a balanced budget. It has passed both bodies and been sent through the conference committee and to the governor's desk. We have not had his budget pass through either legislative body. So I would say, in all due respect, we actually have delivered a budget. He's delivered us his ideas.
But you haven't finished with
Well, I mean, we have. It's on his
Right.
desk. It hasn't been vetoed yet. I mean, you know, I'm an optimist, but I'm also not completely silly. There's some things that he said he doesn't like in there, so maybe he will veto some of those bills. But until we actually see them, we hold out hope that maybe he will sign some of these bills.
Yeah.
Again, what is the path now? I'm not hearing any new change from the tax plan, no progress. What is the path?
Well, I think I think it's a two-pronged. We have to continue to have the big discussion, but we also have to continue to work these bills. And there are bills where we are very close. So 40% of the budget is nothing to sneer at, and there are other bills that are close as well in dollars and even in policy regards. I think there's a lot of agreement in areas. So I think the two-pronged approach is important, and so we're going to continue with our meetings, and we're going to have to continue with the individual bill meetings. And if we are close on a bill, it would seem wise to wrap up a bill and get that done. I think that would show progress. I think that's what people of Minnesota expect. We do believe we have a balanced budget, and it is balanced in every way. It balances the money that's in the checkbook. It's balanced in the way that it has $3 billion additional revenue to the state of Minnesota than in the last biennium. And it is about the same. There are also increases in this budget, and there are reductions because there are trade-offs to be made, and those are the difficult decisions Minnesota families and Minnesota businesses have been making for years, and what state government needs to do.
Can you explain the tone going on inside there?
You know, maybe Senator Lilly wants to answer
Yeah,
that.
that's a good one.
I don't think that. No, nothing's been broken. Nothing's been broken.
I look at this from a business perspective, not from a political perspective. And basically the tone is one of, let's talk about this. We have the work of the people to get done. We have to find a way to the finish line. We have, about 60 hours left here in the session. We're not ready to stop talking. We're ready to continue the conversation. And the tone is very friendly. It's direct. There are major issues to be addressed, to get through. But the tone is one of, let's work together to serve the people of Minnesota.
From all sides?
From all sides.
You've talked a lot about K-12 in the last 2 days. I haven't heard, I don't think, HHS come up. It's another big one.
Sure.
Why haven't I
Well, that is one that we spoke about specifically meeting. That is one of the committees that need to meet. We might need a bigger room. We joked about that we may need more chairs because that is in no way small. But yes, no, HHS would be one that we would need to get on the schedule.
So is it good to compromise?
Pardon?
Is it good to compromise?
Well, certainly. That's how, is it what John Kriesel said at the beginning? That's what keeps him off the couch, right?
Chairman said it's not always good to compromise.
Well, that's,
You know, again, in looking at some of these bills, by having a lot of these folks dig in, and I don't know if it's deadlines, I don't know if it's lack of sleep, bad coffee and lots of chocolate, but getting folks into a room with a whole bunch of spreadsheets and rulers and all kinds of highlighters and looking at some of the things. I mean, we probably had a couple of eureka moments in almost every one of these different committees where the governor said, well, actually I do like that, or I don't remember when state government finance, but there were 2 or 3 that he said, you know what, I actually agree with you on that. That's actually something good. We should work together on that. Education, we have a teacher effectiveness in one of the bills. He said, maybe what about principal effectiveness, which, in my wife's case, she would say it's a great start as a public school teacher. So I don't think that just again, it goes back to that number, which are you going to raise taxes, aren't you? That's not always compromise. Compromise is in the language, in the policy, how the money is directed within individual areas is actually also compromise. And that's where I think by having all these groups meet together individually with the governor and with the particular commissioner, that's a good way to do that as well, to get them in the same room together. And we've had some, I think we've had some very productive meetings on that.
And can you get this done without compromising somehow on the overall project?
Well, we remain optimistic.
Martika, I was just thinking about your question into what comes out of this session. And we are very proud of the fact that for the first time in 38 years, the Minnesota Senate Republican caucus has passed a balanced budget. And we're very proud of that. And it lives within our means. It fulfills the campaign promises that we made. It has many of the reforms that we talked about on the trail. We're very pleased with it. We think it is fiscally sound. We believe it is balanced. And we've also done some really good legislation in the way of jobs and teacher reform. And so, that's what I see going forward. If it's just 5 months on the job in what the governor called a horrendous fiscal crisis, Minnesota Senate Republicans, as well as House members, but for the Republicans, the Senate, it's 38 years in the minority. And we're very proud of that. So that's what I'm taking away from this session, or will take away from this session. The signatures, all the better, and that's what we're hoping for.
Good afternoon. Well, we had 2 meetings today with the Republican leadership, Senator Bach, Representative Teese, and myself, and we've had good discussions, but again, I'm waiting for them to present something new that would reconcile the difference we have of $1.8 billion, and that I'm still waiting for them to suggest something on the revenue side, and they keep saying they're committed to the $34 billion budget and that they're not going to budge from that, so we still remain $1.8 billion apart. Glad to respond to questions.
Governor, would there be any chance of reaching any sort of agreement in your assessment before the midnight deadline on Monday?
Well, we can reach agreement at $35.6 billion for the budget, which is, $3.4 billion below what current law would call for in this for the next biennium. So I went to $1.8 billion on Monday, halfway, and I'm waiting for them to go their halfway, and they're not doing so. So at this point, we still $1.8 billion apart. But if they're willing to be reasonable and fair and meet me halfway, as I've offered to do, then we'll have a resolution. If not, we won't.
Was there any significant movement today in your estimation?
No, because again, they're adamant that $34 billion is what their caucuses are, committed to and won't budge from, and I went halfway to 35.6, and they won't, move. So I've said for weeks now, I'm not going to go all the way to their position. You look at these effects and throwing 140,000 Minnesotans off of health care and cutting Metropolitan Transit by $109 million. Both the Minneapolis and St. Paul Chamber executives have spoken out against that, and they're going to raise everybody's property taxes. My proposal does not raise income or property taxes on 98% of the people in Minnesota. Their cuts in local government aid and the renter's credit would increase property taxes for almost all Minnesota homeowners and renters and businesses. So, in every respect, I consider my offer to be reasonable, to be balanced, and to be far better for most Minnesotans than theirs. And, they don't see it that way, but I'm convinced that mine's a much better deal for the people of Minnesota.
Governor, you said they were pressing you on the budget bills, especially the K-12 bill. Has your position changed?
No, I have said for weeks now that I will not sign one budget bill except for the ag bill until I'm ready to sign all of them. And that includes a tax bill, and that includes a tax bill that has $1.8 billion of additional revenue. So, but all of their bills, one by one, are all in the context of $3.6 billion of cuts. So you can't look at one bill in isolation from the others. And I've said that all along for weeks now, so they know that. And I've told them again and again. I told them this morning, I told them this afternoon. So I don't know what it is about what I'm saying that's so hard to understand. It seems clear enough to me. I will not sign a budget bill until I'm ready to sign all of them, because we're one Minnesota, we're one state government, and each of those bills relates to all of the others, and as I say, their versions of them add up to $3.6 billion in cuts, and that's too much. It's too extreme. It's imbalanced, it's extreme, it's harmful to Minnesota. Cuts University of Minnesota by 19%, it cuts Minnesota by 14%. It's going to really seriously damage the quality of higher education throughout the state, which businesses rely on and which our citizens rely on for the future of Minnesota.
Governor, there's some talk here about a lights-on measure that would keep state government going in some way, shape, or form beyond a possible shutdown, if it ends up going to that. Would you sign such a bill if it reached your desk?
Well, I haven't seen it. I don't know. But, you know, again, their responsibility is to meet me halfway by midnight on Monday so we can resolve this. And that's the solution. It's not, you know, some kind of charade or gimmick. It's about meeting the responsibility that they knew they had when they came in on January 3rd, which is to, you know, agree with me on a reasonable, balanced budget that shares our respective mandates and meets in the middle, because I understand they're committed to their view and I'm committed to my view, and they're different views. So how do you reconcile that? Well, responsible adults resolve it by meeting together in the middle, and that's what I've offered to do, and that's what I'm waiting for them to agree to do.
Did you say anything to them about the expected gay marriage vote tonight?
I didn't. We didn't have that discussion. No.
Governor, do you think if you don't have an agreement by Monday night that that puts more pressure on the Republicans to move?
I don't know. You know, again, I don't know what it will require for them to move, but they're going to need to move if we're going to have an agreement, because I've gone halfway. I've done what I think is responsible and reasonable and fair and balanced, and surveys show the people of Minnesota, 2/3 of them overwhelmingly agree with the balanced, fair approach, raising revenues and cutting spending. And I'm not raising $1 of income tax or property tax on 98% of Minnesota taxpayers. And so, you know, I think it's a very responsible and reasonable and really good offer, and it's certainly good for 98% of the people in Minnesota to protect higher education and protect 140,000 people who are on health care and who will be flocking to the emergency rooms if they're taken off of it. And I had a meeting last week of the Minnesota Hospital Association. They're terrified that this draconian cut is going to throw people into the emergency rooms and seriously undermine their financial stability and their ability to provide quality care to all the rest of their patients. So, you know, this is just, you know, nonsensical that they're not willing to be reasonable and balanced and meet me halfway in the middle, which the people of Minnesota understand is the right solution, the fair solution, and the best solution.
Governor, what's your
What do you want to say?
timeline? What's your timeline for acting on it? I think you have till Tuesday.
You know, I just received one yesterday and all the rest of them this afternoon, and so we're just processing them now, and I have 3 days, not counting Sunday, to act on them, and I will definitely act within that time frame.
Governor, we've asked you this before, you know, and I apologize for asking it again, but the gay marriage amendment's going to be up on the floor tonight. We have to assume that if they're bringing it up, that they have the votes to pass it. Your stance as the campaign moves on toward the ballot question of 2012.
Well, I oppose it strongly, and I will do everything I can to persuade Minnesotans that it's un-Minnesotan, and it violates the basic, 14th Amendment, equal protection for all citizens. It violates the founding principle of this country, that we're all created equal and endowed with our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that, you know, our responsibility as government is to follow our Constitution and our founding principles, and marriage in the province of religion is the responsibility of religions. They can define marriage as they choose, in my view. But government, we, the people, have a Constitution that I took an oath of office to uphold that has the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment that says everybody is guaranteed the same rights and privileges and protections. And that certainly ought to include the ability to marry legally the person that you love. Thank you very much. No, that's it. Thank you very much. Got it. Thank you.